Breakfast, the first one in June. Summer is upon us. It's exciting time, folks, because summer means the beginning of convention seasons. Conventions. Origins is 10 days away. I hope to see you there. Also, new games galore everywhere. And the Dice Tower are putting together some cool videos. Top 100 lists are starting eventually, but we're at least starting to write out the scripts and things. Yes. But first, a contest. Here's an image we showed you 2 weeks ago in Board Game Breakfast, and we asked you to identify the characters in the Uncanny X-Men, a Marvel Dice Masters. This is an expansion to the first one that just came out. And so here are the answers from left to right, top to bottom. It is Pyro, Falcon, not an X-Men, but who cares, he's cool. Quicksilver, Marvel Girl, Psylocke, Sentinel, Iceman, my favorite X-Men, Toad, an X-Men, Bishop, Mr. Sinister, my favorite villain, Cable, Juggernaut, Scarlet Witch, Emma Frost, Boo, and Namor. I thought most of you might not get them all right, but I'd say several hundred got them all right. I was actually surprised. We had almost 600 people enter this contest. The winner, though, currently is Adam Bishop. Adam, email me directly and get me your address so we can get out the 2 Marvel Dice Master playmats that we have here. But don't fret, folks, if Adam fails to email me. I have more people on the list, but also we're going to come back next Board Game Breakfast and we'll have another one of these contests. Fantastic! Anyhow, let's get to the news. Speaking of Dice Masters, obviously the biggest news of the week is the fact that Dungeons & Dragons Dice Masters was being announced. So now we know there's 4 kinds. We got Marvel, DC, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Dungeons & Dragons. WizKids has a lot of licenses so we can see more. And some people are like, oh, they jumped the shark. You know what? Fantastic. You guys keep thinking that. I'm going to keep playing this fun game. The more variety, woohoo. This is the most fun game that has come out this year so far. I am having a blast playing it, and tons of people I've introduced it to love it. So you can say jump the shark. I can say bring on the buffet. We have some new pictures from Munchkin Panic from Fireside Games, so you can see sort of what that's going to be looking like. Also, here's a picture of Lost Legacy Flying Garden. Now, this is a reprint by AEG of the Lost Legacy, which is a sequel, a very direct sequel to Love Letter. If you like Love Letter, it's just like Love Letter with just a slight bit more complexity, trying to figure out where something is. Very fun game. AEG also showed, finally, the cover for their new Smash Up expansion, which is going to have mad scientists, vampires, werewolves, and giant ants. Okay, I don't think anyone guessed giant ants. I think some people might have guessed giant spiders, but giant ants, well, there we go. Let's see other things that are coming out soon. From Ares, they showed us some more pictures of the Battle for 5 Armies. I bet a lot of people are salivating for this one. Looks very exciting. And then Dino Race. It's hard to believe these come from the same company, but both look like good games. Kevin Wilson gave an interview in which he talked a little bit more about X-Files. We found out that it's a 90-minute game, but it has sessions. Sounds kind of like Descent, maybe, where you can go from one to the next, and there'll be these random cases, and the good guys are trying to build a 9-piece jigsaw that says, I want to believe, and the Smoking Man is trying to mess them up in that regard. So that sounds interesting. Also, Machikoro, they've announced the expansion for it, The Harbor. This one was already printed in Japanese. Now in English, this is going to have 10 more buildings and go up to 5 players. Bring it on. I still say it should have been in the base set, but whatever. More Machikoro is a good thing. Alright, a few things were released last week. The newest Star Wars LCG, Knowledge and Power, has an A-Wing on the cover. It also has the Moldy Crow in it. So, you know, it's pretty close actually to the X-Wing releases. Asmodee released several games. Unita, it says it's an abstract game with a fantasy theme, which confuses me. Because why have the fantasy theme if it's just an abstract game? But whatever. The expansion Archipelago, War and Peace, and then a game called Sultania. And also they released the Samurai Sword Rising Sun expansion. Samurai Sword is like the rethemed Japanese version of Bang in a sense. Has some changes to it. Actually made Bang a little bit better. So here's an expansion for it to make it, of course, more complicated, I'm sure. What's coming out this coming week? I don't know, except the newest wave of Star Trek Attack Wing is supposed to hit shelves, so many of you can finally get your hand on the board cube. All right, time to go to the iOS.
Hi Hi, Suzanne here, and this week I thought we'd do something a little bit different. Instead of featuring an app, I wanted to talk about what sets the best board game apps apart from all the rest. So consider this part 1 of Board Game Apps 101. For me, the most important feature of any board game app is the solo play or AI experience. Let's face it, a lot of device gaming is about playing when you don't have a person around to play against. And sometimes you're not online or just don't feel like dealing with the unpredictability of online play. You just feel like sitting on the sofa and relaxing with a quick game. The best game apps offer multiple AI options to play against, whether that's by difficult rating or by play style. These options really extend the fun and the challenge of any game and lets you kind of control what kind of game you feel like playing at that time. Some apps go even further, like in Suburbia, and offer a unique solo campaign-like option for even more choices. So that's all fine and dandy, but what about learning the game? Game apps are, theoretically, a great way to try out a game before you invest more budget in a hard copy. But you have to be able to learn the game from the app, which can be more challenging than with a hard copy because you don't have all the physical pieces you can move around and kind of acclimate yourself. The best game apps have thorough and interactive game tutorials, not just digital rulebooks. Even better is when an app lets you skip to different phases within a tutorial when you need a refresher. Unfortunately, many games release with inferior or without any game tutorial, which to me is not acceptable in today's world of great game apps. So there you have it. There are a lot of great board game apps today, but like anything, you should always look for the best value for your dollar. So make sure to check out comments about an app's tutorial and AI when you're shopping. Next time we'll chat about online and pass and play options in board game apps. Talk to you then.
Something when I went on the convention, so I was a little sick last week, so I didn't get as many videos as I wanted to, but I worked feverishly over the weekend, and I got 24 games that you're going to see being reviewed this week and next week, so hopefully that's 12 per week, including, we got Chaos Ball, that's definitely coming this week, the new Mage Wars expansion. I'm going to go do some classics, El Grande and Robo Rally. The ones you don't see this week, you'll see next week, but I'm very excited about several of these games, and there's a couple here I'm not so excited about. You'll hear about them. Also, my contributors. There's a new thing I found, I've been using it on my iPhone. I don't necessarily always want to use iTunes to subscribe to different podcasts, and I like to listen to the different podcasts in the Dice Tower network. We have several of them. Well, I've started using a program called Stitcher, and when I use Stitcher and search for the Dice Tower network, it's there, and I can put that into, it's like a radio station, and I can just like click and fast forward, and I'll listen to a podcast. No, I don't feel like listening to this one right now because it's a Dice Tower, and that Tom Vasel guy's a dork. So I can skip to the next one, and when I load it up, it has all the newest podcasts from the Dice Tower network. I found that it's an easy way to go through the whole network and look at the newest podcasts that have come out this week. It's a great way, and I think you should try that. That's a program. I don't know all the different applications. I think it's out for Android and the iOS, but it's called Stitcher. All right, what do we got now? Oh, those snakes guys.
Hello, Internet. I'm Snakes and Lattes curator Steve Tassi, and today I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite elements in games, backstabbing. Now, unless you're talking about a purely cooperative game, pretty much every game out there has the potential for a little backstabbery. But some games excel at it, and others were seemingly designed around the concept. So any game that's got secret identities, the werewolf games, the Resistance, Coup, Saboteur, these games, they lend themselves very well to backstabbing because to play it well, if you're one of the bad guys, you've got to be able to lie and convince people of your good intentions and then turn the knife. But there's two that I want to mention in more detail right now, and that is Bruto Faidudi's Citadels from Fantasy Flight Games, and Bang the Dice Game, which is by Michael Palm and Lucas Zach. And so Citadels is interesting because it's got secret identities, and it's got backstabbing, because with the assassin and the thief, you can really ruin somebody's day every single turn if you want to. But the catch is, the role selection is done in secret, and because you target a specific role rather than a player, with Citadels, you never know quite who you're going to be stabbing in the back. Now, Bang the Dice Game is another excellent game, full of backstabbery. It takes all the good stuff out of the original Bang and ditches all the stuff that makes the card game too long and too complicated. Now, I want to warn you though, the box does lie a little bit. Bang the Dice Game claims that it's good for 3 to 8 players, and that's not really true, because until you get to 5 players, you don't have the deputy role in play, and without that hidden secret deputy, there's no mystery for the sheriff, there's no real room for backstabbing. But definitely, if you like Bang, or were thinking about getting into Bang, try Bang the Dice Game. That's all the time we have today for part 1 of Backstabbing Games. Join us next week for part 2.
In One-Hit Wonders, I talk about a game that was once on my top 100 list of all time and no longer is. And for this one and the next couple, I'm going to talk about a couple of obscure games that were on my list because I love them, but they no longer are. And today we're talking about The Great Space Race. Now, many of you probably have never heard of this game. It was published by Kenzer & Company, who's best well known for the Knights of the Dinner Table and their RPGs, Hackmaster, and you know, that they're not necessarily known as a board game company. They had a foray into it. They made another game besides this one, I forget what it was, but this was basically it. The Great Space Race was a space game in which you flew around and you kind of programmed your moves with cards, like Robo Rally in a sense where you moved around the board. But all sorts of things could happen. You could smash into other people, a space monster might show up, a black hole. It was really kind of cool. It had this really strong thematic flair to it. Well, why did it fall off the list? Well, one thing, was just a smidge too long. It was very underproduced. It could have been much nicer looking. And those two things really combined just kind of took it out. Man, I'd love to see someone take this and streamline it, give it nice production values, and maybe I'll look into that. You know, it's a really cool game. I haven't thought about it in a long time, actually. When I was going through this list to pick this game, I said, wow, I really remember enjoying that game. Because you had this whole trying to outmaneuver other people, trying not to hit the walls of this space race course, and all of a sudden, whoa, there's a black hole opening up in the middle. Now you got to maneuver around that, and you were never sure what kind of weird events were going to happen. It was a really cool idea, and really fun and chaotic, but at the same time you kind of felt like you were outmaneuvering other people. So if you find it, you'd probably find it for a pretty cheap price. I'd recommend picking up, especially if you like the theme of space racing, but also this is one that maybe we should think about seeing it streamlined and republished. Anyway, that's The Great Space Race.
I'm going to be talking about upgrading the trains in trains. The trains in trains were originally little sticks, but they were changed to cubes. Cubes are omnidirectional. I'm in too deep. Ask the viewers for help. And now, part 2 of our segment. First off, thank you to everybody who weighed in on this Great Trains component sticks versus cubes debate with a YouTube comment, a tweet, social media post, or an email message this past week. I have the results right here to share with you. 9% of people responding preferred the existing little cubes already utilized in trains above anything else. 24% would prefer something even less omnidirectional than cubes, like discs or little hexes. 66% prefer replacing the cubes with something more stick-like and representative of trains, and interestingly enough, 1% are foreign princes who want me to send them my bank account number. Okay, so what method did I end up choosing to upgrade my trains in trains? Well, super bonus for you, I actually have 3 suggestions. First, it's possible to purchase packs of replacement Ticket to Ride trains online. You can purchase a full set of just the little trains in 4 to 5 colors for $34 and... wait a minute. You know, it's possible to purchase an entire copy of Ticket to Ride, which contains all the trains you're going to need, for about $33. Plus, you get an entire board game with that. So, option number 2, yeah, just buy Ticket to Ride. But lastly, for those looking for an alternative to Ticket to Ride, I suggest the game Paris Connection. It includes enough little trains to upgrade trains, plus the trains are smaller. Some of the people that I spoke to stated that they actually preferred the trains in Paris Connection for this task because their smaller stature made them more cube-like, again, helping suggest omnidirectionality. Paris Connection can be found on sale online for about $43. So join me next time when I should have a special guest. Prince Absulu Dabdalis is scheduled to be here all the way from Africa to reward me for a financial matter I've been helping him with. Woohoo!
Hey folks, Tom Vasel here.
Jason Levine.
Today your question comes from Corey, and he asks about game rating systems. People like to rate games. Mostly people know this from Board Game Geek, where you can rate games from 10, which means awesome, to 1, which means one-upmanship. So you have these different games, and he says, is it fair to rate a game if you don't like that genre? Let's say, for example, I'm not a big, heavy war gamer. So let's say Jason talks me into playing a heavy war game, and I don't like it, so I rate it lowly. Is that bad?
I think it is.
Well, first of all, you shouldn't have talked me into playing it.
Well, I got to get you into different things. You play very light games. You got to start getting heavier.
What are you talking about? I play everything. But anyway, continue.
But in my opinion, that you're going to have people who like a certain type of game and they're going to rate the games high. You have people who hate a certain type of game and are going to rate them low. But usually I try to judge the games not based on the rating so much, but based on what company it is, what other who's the designer, what else they've put out. It gives me a better feel for the game.
So you're saying you personally don't look at ratings?
Not usually.
But ratings do have an effect. People will look at a game that has a lot of good ratings.
Yeah, and if you look at like the top 10 list and you see games like Puerto Rico and Power Grid and Twilight Struggle, and those are all really good games, so they got up there by that. But then you have other games where some people purposely rate it low because they don't like the theme or they don't like something about it.
But I don't think that happens enough to matter. Like, for example, let's say someone hates dice games. So anytime they see a new dice game, they rate it 1. They don't even play it. Okay, well, that person has a problem. And secondly, I don't think it's that they're not really affecting it because most people don't do that.
Yeah.
And if you don't like a certain kind of game, let's say I don't like heavy war games, I'm not going to play them very much anyway. And I think Twilight Struggle is a good example of that. There's a lot of people in the world who I know would hate Twilight Struggle. They would hate it. But those people never play it. Because if I put it out and said, let's play this, they would say no. And that is actually why I think Twilight Struggle is number 1. I think it's a great game, but I think all the people who don't like it, don't play. Who wouldn't like it, don't play it.
True.
So you can say, well, this game you shouldn't have ranked it poorly because you weren't going to like it anyway. But if they played the game, if you got them to play the game somehow, that meant there was something interesting. So then I think their ranking is completely fair.
Yeah, if people actually play the game and sit through it and they, like, when I look at the ratings, I usually look for descriptions. And if people have a description of what they liked or didn't like, then I can judge the rating fairly. But when I just see a 1 or a 10, I'm like, okay, this guy just gave it a 10 because they like the game. This guy gave it a 1 because they hate the game. But they haven't given a reason. The people who actually put the descriptors, I think, is a lot better.
All right, so I'm not sure what our answer is on this. I think you can rate any game you want as long as you've played it, okay? And I think that if you are a reviewer like me, you should say what you're, like if I said, I'm not a big fan of this game and that's why I didn't like it. I'm not a big fan of this genre. That way people can say, oh, okay, well, he was kind of disinclined to like it anyway. But if you're just doing a rating, do whatever you want. I don't think everyone is going to play heavy war games and rank them low because they don't like war games. If you don't like war games, you're not going to play them. If you don't like CCGs, you're not going to play them. You might play a couple, but if you're ranking them poorly because you don't like it, I don't know, you can't read people's minds.
Exactly.
And you can't say you can't rank war games, Vasel.
No. I mean, I like a lot of war games, so I rank war games highly. I like GMT as a company. I think they make a lot of really good games. But of course, other people who would never pick up a GMT game because it's got cardboard pieces or something like that are going to say, ooh, let's give it a 1 because it's got cardboard instead of minis.
Yeah, but I don't think enough of that's going around. I don't think that's a big deal.
I don't either.
And I wouldn't worry about it. As a designer, I know that I've looked at some people's rankings and nothing personal. They hated it, right?
I gave it a 1.
And
no, I didn't.
But I mean, I've seen people give it a 1, and I looked at it and I said, okay, they like your games. They weren't going to like it anyway, okay?
Yeah.
Because now you're in. But you know what? That doesn't bother me, okay? They should be able to rank it lowly. If only the people who liked your style game were able to rank it, it would skew everything upwards.
I agree with that too. I think that people should be fair, but you should at least play a game through and know what you like when you do it.
All right. You guys got a question for us? Email it to us at dicetower@gmail.com. Hey folks, today I want to talk to you about my reviews and I guess apologize. And let me explain. I have several rules in place when I review things. I don't have to have these rules in place, but they are what they are. I might say, okay, I'm going to play this game this many times, and I'm going to do this here with this game, and I'm going to try this game with these specific people because I know they'll like it. But one of the rules that I have is I often invoke it when I go to conventions. I'll go to a convention, and I'll be talking to someone, and they'll say, hey, let me teach you this game. And I'll say, you know what? It is best if you just give me the game, let me look through the rule book and learn it on my own, because that way I can learn the game on my own and tell people how good the rule book is or not. Now, I don't always follow that rule because sometimes the designer is there and he's an exciting designer and it's like, all right, teach me the game, you know? That's how, I mean, there are many games that I learned from designers, Eldritch Horror, I mean, well, there's just probably too many for me to list. But for the most part, I have that rule in place because, well, the guy who's going to teach you the game really knows how to teach it, but that's not very helpful to the viewer. So when I am taught the game, I still try to go back and look at the rule book and determine how hard that rule book is to learn from. Well, here we have a game that we gave a very positive review to of Myth. Myth is a game in which was a very successful Kickstarter last year, is a game about some dungeon crawl, basically, where you go through, think of it similar to Descent, or Mice and Mystics, and you go through and fight creatures that come in waves. It's a fairly complex game, has spawn points and very, very cool miniatures and a neat game. When this game was sent to me, I was very excited, and the designer said, hey, I'll come down to where you guys are, and I'll teach you the game. And I said, well, you know what, that's a very nice offer, and it's very tempting to play with a designer. It would be super fun. But you know what, I think we'll be okay. Put the game aside, went through, the week was very busy, pulled the game out, started going through the rules. I said, holy cow, this is a huge rule book. These rules, my mind is going blank, and I started asking questions to the designers. I often ask the designers questions to clarify things in the games, and the designer said, you know, remember, I can come down. I said, you know what, I'll take you up on that. Why don't you just come down and teach it to us? Because I can make this an exciting game day, and people can come, and I'll say, play with the designer, and we have a great time. And that's what happened. They came down, they taught it to us, we had a great time. And I do not make any apologies for saying how great this game is. It is a super fun game. It is fairly complex, like I said. Not one for everybody because there's a lot of involvement. It's almost like a miniatures game in a sense, but we really had fun. Well, when we were done, I was doing my review. I played it some more, and when I had trouble, I'd go to the rules, and now that I knew how to play, I could find all the stuff in the rules. See, that's the thing with this rule book. Once you know how to play, it's easy to find things in the rule book. If you do not know how to play, though, the rule book is a disaster, and that is something I just did not emphasize, didn't really make a big deal about, didn't even really think that much about, until, of course, the game was released and people came and accused us of dishonesty, of being paid off by the publisher and such. Well, let me tell you that. We've not been paid off by the publisher. Here's what I got from the publisher, this game. Well, and a game date with the designer of the game. And we had a great time doing so. But the rule book, I gave it to other people since. It didn't cover everything. Obviously, there's a few things that are missing from the rule book, but I didn't come across those in subsequent games. But I gave it to other people and said, you know, could you learn the rules from this? And they said no, they could not. And I realized that we had done a disservice to our viewers. And I was like, well, what do we do about this? Because the game really is good. You really can, and they'll put videos up online. People will be able to play it. And I have sympathy for people with tough rule books after the raking over the coals I got for nothing personal. But I don't ever like to be accused of dishonesty or hiding things, so we're bringing this out here. And I don't want there to be any villain in this piece. If there is a villain in this piece, then let that villain be me. I do not want to blame MegaCon Games. They were excited to show us the game. Well, I mean, they could have made a better rulebook probably, but you know, this game is an amazing work, and they just need to make a better rulebook. Us, though, we did not do our due diligence. Do I still recommend the game? Yes. I highly recommend it. If you notice, I still have my copy. I think it's super fun. I had some of the miniatures painted by one of my friends, and I can't wait to try it out again. But For people who have a hard time with rule books, you'd better know what you're getting into. You need to look it up online. And to everybody who watched my reviews, I apologize. This is what I get for breaking my own rule. And I know some people are going to be like, see, Vasel, I told you, and then they'll turn away in disgust. And I don't know what I can do to apologize about this. There was no money changing hands here. There was nothing. It just this game and a chance for us to play it. And I let my enthusiasm and my love of the genre overcome me being as good of a reviewer as I possibly could. And for that, I apologize. I will endeavor to do a better job of this in the future and be stricter on this so that I can help you viewers out as much as possible. I still think Myth is great and has a chance to be a game that people will talk about in decades to come, but it does need a better rulebook.
Hello, my initials are RS, and I am a supervillain. I would like to talk to you today about some of the negative stereotypes that have been brought up in board and card games. My fellow supervillains and I are tired of the way we are being portrayed in games such as Legendary, a Marvel deck-building game, the DC Comics deck-building game, Sentinels of the Multiverse, and others. We are always shown as being simply mean or evil, concocting outrageous plans for money or revenge. Now, yes, it's true. We occasionally do these things, and sometimes a few bystanders die. But this only shows one side of characters. Take me, for instance. Did you know that I'm heavily involved in children's charities? I love those little goofballs. Also, I'm quite civic-minded. I sat on the zoning and planning committee in my community for 18 months. I did my best to keep those big box stores out of the community and supported local businesses. So the next time you see a supervillain smashing a truck full of plutonium, or aiming a death ray at Washington, D.C., or even all out exposing your favorite hero to inhuman torture, remember, we supervillains may be evil, but we're not really bad people. I thank you for your time, and I will dominate you all.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be
And that's it for this week, folks. Whew, a lot of stuff. I really have to get cracking on these reviews, but hopefully I got this one out earlier this week. Well, we'll see how editing goes. But guys, you're a great audience, and I want to thank you for sticking around and watching the show each week. If you know someone who's into board games, recommend to them Board Game Breakfast. I don't think there's any other show like it on the internet, and we want to promote it as much as possible and getting the contributors in. And I've been working on the intros and outros to make them better. Well, we'll see. Hopefully the show will get better as time goes by. I'm glad you guys like it. Don't forget, you can get an audio-only version if you like at dicetoweraudio.com. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vasel and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production. Sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., an amazing place to buy board games. Cool stuff, in stock, at coolstuffinc.com.